Algarve here in Portimao. The final race of Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America is coming to the grid.
Superstar, instant superstar.
Well, Slade Stewart has another win today to extend his lead.
That very distinctive livery on that car, the Sparklefarts.
We see that it was the 19, just a few cars in front.
And crucially, championships in the classes to be decided.
Hi, I'm Slade Stewart, and I'm the driver of the number 14 car, aka Sparklefarts. I started tracking motorcycles after I moved to Arizona. Hired a coach to teach me how to run a bike, and started to get actually pretty good at it. Got an invitation down to a charity event down in Willcox, Arizona, and it was for cars. I said, well, let's go try that out. I didn't have a race car or anything. I just had a Cadillac CTSV and had never been on a track with a car. And after doing a number of track events, I said, you know, I want to go do this racing thing. I started out with a Subaru BRZ platform and just had a lot of fun club racing and got more and more competitive and started to see some podium action. There was a lot of paint trading at those points in time. There were a lot of bumpers that had to get repaired and doors that had to get fixed. And you know, we were just having a hell of a time doing club racing. I decided that 2020 was going to be a year where I was going to move out of the club style racing and move into Porsche. But I ordered a 991.2 as the car behind me. The 2021 season started. I brought on Andy Lee as my professional coach. He has a deep background with the 991.2s and Porsches throughout their range. And so I hired him to be my pro coach, and we started moving across America to tracks I'd never been to. Started to pick up some podiums. We're going, okay, I've got some competitiveness about me. But 2021 was really a learning year for me. Learning the platform, really learning how to get the most out of the Porsche. It's a challenging car to drive. Doing a lot of data work and analysis with Andy and working on my human behavior, being able to translate the data into human action. That's what racing is. People think about, they think it's about driving a race car really fast. What they don't understand is you spend more of your time reviewing data and trying to translate that into muscle movements in thousandths of a second, and to be able to effectively execute that lap after lap after lap, because once you really get up there in the times, you're chasing tenths. A tenth in this turn, a tenth in that turn, 100th in this turn, 100th in that turn. And if you execute that, all of a sudden you've found a second, or you found a second and a half. And those things they're very, very important.
My name is Andy Lee, and I've been a professional race car driver and a driver coach for almost 20 years now. I've raced in a variety of different series, anything from SCCA Pro, NASA, IMSA, SRO, which is World Challenge, done Baja 1000, just a pretty broad span of different things, and coached drivers from every level, basically, from junior level Formula kids to top level pros. For me, the passion for racing started very, very young. I grew up with my uncle kind of as the father figure in our household. We were kind of lived all in the same house with my grandma. And my uncle was really into motorcycle racing and car racing, you know, so from a very early age, that's what I remember, you know, sitting down in the living room and watching and you know, really falling in love with the sport in general. So as I got older, I always knew that's what I wanted to do. It just seemed like that was my path. To become a great driver, you know, especially at the pro level, it's a lot of dedication, just like any other sport, any other business, any other hobby. You know, everybody wants to do this. Everybody wants to do it well. Everybody wants to win. So it really comes down to very small details. What are you willing to do that's more than the next person to bump you up the grid a spot or two?
I'm Tom Tate. I drive for Flying Lizard Motorsports, the #1 sports car team in the United States, and I drive a Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America Championship. I started racing when I was about 5 years old in quarter midgets, moved up to motocross, raced professional supercross in the early 1980s, and then started racing cars around 1982. At 17 years old, raced for about 5 years, and moved up to Super V, which at that time was just below Indy cars, was forced to retire and graduate from school. And so coming back to racing is kind of fulfilling a dream that I always had, because I wanted to be an IndyCar driver when I was 22 years old, and the rug was yanked out from under me.
My name is Eddie Martin. I'm a technician. I started in 78, 79 at Universal Technical Institute. Slade and I got together about, I think it's about 10, 12 years ago. And then we just started getting into racing. He got into BRZs out at Indy Motorsports, and we just hooked up out there and started playing and trying to win a championship.
My name is Darren Law. I am one of the team principal owners, one of 3 of Flying Lizard Motorsports. My history or my background began as a kid. My father was involved in racing. Worked for Roger Penske, was a mechanic for Mark Donahue back in the 60s, so it's kind of been in my blood, you know, in my family ever since I was young. I started off in go-karts when I was 11 years old, and I spent from 11 until about 18 years old racing karts. Won the IKF National Championship at 14, so I spent a lot of time in many different types of racing, from F2000. I spent some time in Europe racing in England in Formula Renault. I drove basically Porsches from the late 90s all the way through most of my career. In 2001, I won the GT championship for Porsche. And then in 2004, I was introduced to Flying Lizard Motorsports, which is the program I'm involved with now.
I got called by Flying Lizard Motorsports, the best sports car team in the US. And they asked if I wanted to drive in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo series, and they talked about forming a team for that. So the next step was to either say yes or no, and I said yes, and then I thought about who might want to join the team.
I got a call from a good friend of mine, Tom Tate, and he said, "Hey buddy, where you at?" I said, "Well, Tom, I'm at the office. You know, it's a Tuesday." He said, "I'll be by in 15 minutes. I said, okay. Tom comes in, sits down in my office, and after shooting the shit a little bit, he said, "Hey, I've been talking to Flying Lizard and Darren Law, and the team is going to re-enter IMSA racing, and they're partnering with Lamborghini. And I'm committing to it, and I want you to too." And I said, "Well, hey, Tom, hit the brakes. You know, I'm already committing to Porsche for 2022. That sounds really interesting. You know, I'll have to get back to you." And I said, "You know, why'd you call me?" He said, "I've been watching you remotely. I see that you're going to these tracks in a car that you've never raced, tracks you've never been to, and I can see that you would do very well. You're properly aggressive, you're properly measured, and if I had a partner, I'd want you to be it." And I said, "You know, Tom, that's very kind of you, but you know, it's kind of a big ask." So, went home and it was kind of gnawing at me, and I'm YouTubing the STO Trofeo series and stewed on it for a couple of weeks, looked at the calendars, and I'm like, I could actually make this work. I could do both. It's going to be a big time commitment, but it's possible. And so I called him up. I said, hey, I'm in.
Starting the season at Laguna Seca was a benefit for us because Slade had been there before. And he'd raced there before in some Porsche Cup cars, so that was huge. Just him being familiar with the circuit took a lot off our plate, and we could just focus on the competition and focus on the car. That being said, we had no idea how fierce the competition was going to be until we actually got there. That was our first taste of what everybody was bringing to the table. And I'd certainly say that it was higher than expected.
Laguna Seca is a very, very challenging track. There is a tremendous amount of elevation change. Obviously, there's the world-renowned corkscrew. The corkscrew is very, very challenging because once you make that left-hand turn, the car is going to fall 6 stories and you can't see where you're going. So you just have to have your markers spot on, because the moment you get that car rotated and the steering wheel back straight, it's pedaled back all the way to the floor, even though you cannot quite see where you're going yet. It is a very unforgiving turn. A lot of bad things have happened there, but that track's stickiness changes by the hour, and it's inherently a slippery track because the surface is so old. It's very granular, it eats tires. The tire degradation is significantly higher there than other tracks, so the tires are falling off much faster throughout the race. I had the benefit of racing that track previously with the Porsche, but Lamborghini is a different animal. So going into Laguna, this is our first race. We got a Saturday, Sunday race. We have qualifying and practice on Friday. The objective for the entire weekend was to just bring the car back in one piece. Anybody who's watched any historical Lamborghini Super Trofeo racing knows that turn 1, lap 1, generally at any race, turns into a yard sale.
Bid, but it is definitely a corner, and already Spinelli in the 88, the white, green, and red Lamborghini trying to push forward, and a problem for your race winner from yesterday.
So it was just get through the race, get comfortable, build some confidence, and don't break the car.
We had a moment in one of the races where he lost it in the turn, and we were very lucky to escape with very minimal damage. And just going back to the garage after that, it's like, hey, let's just remember, it's all about the championship. It's the first weekend. We don't need to take big risks. Let's just feel this thing out. And
lost it in turn 6, backed into the wall, tore off the mirror, busted up the rear in a little bit, but didn't stop me from being able to finish that race. So coming out of Saturday, car was still in one piece. Guys had some repair to do. They rewrapped it. We went, okay, well, here we go Sunday.
From LB Cup to AM, here we are. Green flag is in the air.
Green flag flew, and I just spent the entire race trying to focus on my braking points, my turn-in points, my exits, and after quite a few battles, we wound up finishing the race in first.
Right there. Also, Slade Stewart there for Flying Lizard Motorsports takes the LB Cup victory by only half a second. With the Huracan chain racing electronics entry of John.
Your champion here in LB Cup. Chris Ward will deliver the championship trophy to Mr. Stewart, and then we'll also have Ferruccio Pavesi from Pirelli Motors.
I was coming in the pits and I didn't know he'd won the race for his class, and I'm like, where's Slade? And they're like, he's up at the podium. And I see him walking back, and he's covered with champagne. He's got his hat, and Eddie's got the trophies and stuff. And it was just like, wow, how unbelievable to be a guy that had never raced in a big IMSA race event, show up there your first time and just slaughter it, just crush it, end up on the podium, superstar, instant superstar.
You know, I mean, it was a great weekend. It was a great first race for us. You know, first round for us to be in Trofeo, and it kind of set up, you know, we talked about what our objectives are, how well are we going to run, and laid out our plan for the rest of the season.
That black and blue number 1 looks for the flag. It's Danny Vermael actually behind the wheel, and they.
So NOLA. That was the first time I'd been there. That was one of the very few racetracks, you know, that I was visiting for the first time also, and it was thrown into the mix at the last minute. We were supposed to go to another track and in support of another series, and then the plug got pulled and we got switched to NOLA like a couple weeks before the race weekend started. So very little time to prep, very little time to get used to or get ready for it. But that track is pretty demanding even though it's flat. It's fast, a lot of S's that were super high speed, and we had a big mix of weather conditions there too. So
you know, New Orleans was a very, very interesting, very challenging track. You know, the road surface, there were some pretty bumpy sections to it, which really got the chassis unsettled, and you had to be prepared to deal with that. But you know, those are just the dynamics of every track. You know, you've got weird bumps, weird kinks. You know, they all have their own individual personalities. You know, how does the car want to perform there in the morning versus how does it want to perform there in the afternoon? You know, those are two totally different scenarios because of temperature, tire temp, surface temp, moisture content. New Orleans was incredibly humid. So not only was it hard on the cars, it was hard on the drivers, it was hard on everybody. I think we had 90% humidity and 90 degrees. You know, inside the cabin of the car is anywhere from 115 to I think 120 degrees. So, you know, it's a very, very challenging environment. And, you know, we came out of that weekend with actually some really good finishes. We had a first place and a second place. You know, I'd entered the season saying, you know, I'm gonna work my butt off, but you know, racing's racing. You don't know how things are gonna go. We've got a lot of other great competitors out there. And so to come out of New Orleans with a first and a second, you know, that the personal momentum for me started to build, and it's okay. You know, we might be able to do something here this season.
The Lamborghini Cup, while Slade Stewart has another win today to extend his lead in the LB Cup category.
So we went out to Watkins Glen for our initial set of practices. So Andy was in the car and he was running up through the S's, and all of a sudden I hear full course red. And I start to see the cars trickle back in, and Andy's not there and my car's not there. So I start asking questions, what happened? And they said Andy spun in the S's. Anybody who knows Watkins Glen, the top side of those S's, there's basically a cage around it for a reason, because cars that lose it up there, they can leave the ballpark. And I started to get really concerned, asking, you know, who's talking to Andy? Is Andy okay? And finally they got back to me and said, Andy's fine, but he had a right rear blowout. I am expecting the car is coming back in pieces. And when they brought the car back, I was absolutely shocked. There was some minor rear end damage the blowout had caused, but the car was intact. Andy was safe. That was the most important part. But that was a confidence demoralizer for us. And we come to find out from the tow truck that the 2 days prior of Trofeo's out there testing, he had pulled something like 5 cars out that had been destroyed because of tire failure. You know, there's nothing worse for a driver than to not have confidence in his tire. And they promised us that there was a stronger tire coming for the actual race weekend, and ultimately that became true. Yeah, so race 1 at Watkins Glen, you know, we're all under the pace car and we're running around the track. Green flag's gonna fly. We're rounding the final turn to get onto the front stretch, and all of a sudden the car completely walks left on me.
Watkins Glen.
The 13 car right behind me tapped me because he had nowhere to go. I spin and ultimately come to a stop, pointed straight down pit lane. Got the car restarted, limped it down pit lane to our pits, up on the jacks. They pull the wheel off, put the tire wheel on, drop me, and go. So, you know, coming off the Saturday race and the torn down tire, you know, Sunday it was just go out there, run a clean race, try and stay off of any debris, and finish. And we had a very, very competitive race. We had a great pit stop. The team ran strategy incredibly well. And, you know, it showed itself by the end of the race that I had taken first place again.
How you doing?
Flying Lizard Motorsports, your points leader coming into the weekend. What a rebound, Slade Stewart!
And it was another celebration for the team. You know, we were all really excited about what was going on. You know, part of racing is it's being in the car, but it's the camaraderie, being out there with friends, having a great team in Flying Lizard, and having a great time with all the guys, whether it's the mechanics, the tire guys. You know, we just have a great group of guys, and you know, as hard as they work, it's fun to be able to deliver for them.
If you get something bad in there, or somebody having a problem with somebody else on the team, it brings everybody else down. And I saw none of that in Flying Lizard.
Nice and easy, buddy. You got it.
We worked well with Tom's guys. There was a lot of joking, camaraderie stuff. I was called the old man, which I am. I've been called the old man since I was 27 because of my gray hair. But
there are so many funny things that are not on video that happen. So many pranks.
Is CJ talking to you? I'm getting splashes. Your phone keeps shaking.
Well, whose phone do you want to use? I'm just taking video right now.
And Slade Stewart owes a little family love for the graphics that are on his car. I understand that the graphic package on his car was designed by his daughter.
Yeah, by Amelia, that's exactly right. And very proud of it is Slade.
And it's an attention getter. There were a lot of photographers down there taking pictures.
You know, the liveries of the cars, I've always included my children in my racing. You know, it's not just about me, it's the family. And so, you know, I gave them an opportunity each time the new year started that one of them would get to pick the wrap that year, and they'd go sit down with Scott at Signature Graphics, and he would kind of pick their brains about, you know, what ideas, what colors, what themes. And because my daughter's my oldest and the Lamborghini's the biggest race car, I said, honey, you get the Lamborghini. I said, what livery do you want? And she said, well, Dad, I'd like the sparkly pink car with the unicorn. I said, okay, honey, if that's what you want, then that's what you can have. We are at Laguna, and I'm chatting with Kelly, who is the head marketing for Flying Lizard, and she said, you know, Slade, we got to give the car a name. And I remember I'd had this sticker made that I kept on putting on the backs of all of my buddies' race cars that said, get on Sparklefarts, we have fuckery to spread. And I said, how about Sparklefarts? And her face just like kind of lit up. She said, that's it. I said, no, I was joking. No, I was joking. She's like, no, that's it. And I said, well, you got to go sell that to Darren then, because I don't think Darren's going to buy it. She said, don't worry, I've already tweeted a poll. And I'm going, okay, well, you're going to have to deal with this.
And for me, being a racing driver and having the history that I do in the industry, when I saw a pink car with a unicorn, I was like, no, this is not this is not our brand. This is not a Flying Lizard brand. This is not how we do it, but it is the customer's program and they get to choose the livery. So reluctantly, we went out and started to promote it, and I thought, this probably won't go anywhere, but Slade was fast, did really well, and the car it's been received like phenomenally amongst the fans. It's a fan favorite for sure.
You know, we always do garage tours. Kelly always announces it on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and our visits started to increase, the the number of people. And it was principally driven by kids, right? It's a hot pink race car. So I always made a point to be there and open the door and be able to put the kids in and answer their questions and take pictures with them. And it just throughout the season, more and more would start to show up. And so finally we were going into VIR, and prior to the race weekend, I was at home sitting online looking at Amazon, and I ran across this pink stuffed animal. Looks just like the pink unicorn on the side of the car. And I was like, how many do they have in stock? They have 40 in stock, so I ordered all 40. And I texted Kelly with a picture, and I said, hey, Kelly, I picked up like 40 of these things, figure out what you want to do. She started building a little marketing campaign of, we're going to have our garage tours at this time, and we've got some stuffies to give away, and I'm in the pits, and it's about to become garage tour time, and so I need to go use the restroom, needed to go get some lunch, and I was leaving, and she said, hey, you're going to be here for the garage tours, right? I said, yeah, I'll make an effort to be here, but I really got to get some food in my stomach before the race. So I come back, we're cruising by in the golf cart, and I look over, and there is this line that goes down a number of pits, and they're all waiting to get into ours. And I'm going, uh-oh. So I was like, Tom, we got to go over there. There's like 75, 80 people inside our tent. We've never had this many people come to a garage tour, and more of them than not were kids, and that was an interesting race because I actually got to bring 2 of my kids, and so they're like beaming, looking around at all these people, and they're like, Dad, what's going on? I said, honey, they're all here to see the cars, and we brought all these stuffies. And so my 2 kids and Kelly and a variety of others who started distributing out all the stuffed animals, and I'd also bought like 40 unicorn tiaras. We're handing those out and answering questions and signing autographs. It was just so much fun to be able to engage with the fan base. When you're walking through the pits and you're seeing moms and dads and kids wearing the pink Sparklefarts t-shirts, and it's been really, really cool to see this thing just kind of grow from nowhere. And I think it starts with the fact that it's an identifiable story between a daughter and her father.
All the kids flock to it, which is cool, because that's the future of racing, is these young kids getting excited about these cars. Because if not, it's going to go away. And I hope it doesn't in my lifetime anyway.
I shook my head and I looked at Doug and I said, holy shit, this guy better be really fast, because you don't show up at a racetrack with a pink car with a unicorn on it with sparkles all over it. I mean, he better be the fastest guy that ever has been on the racetrack, because that car, everyone is going to see that car and wonder what the hell's going on and who is this guy?
Road America was a lot of tests for us, especially for Slade. We were in the wrong place at the wrong time a lot there.
Saturday's race at Road America, green flag flew, and we're off to the races, and shortly thereafter I started to get a real wobble in the rear end, and I said, oh no, another tire.
There, then Slade Stewart will spin with a flat tire.
I was able to limp the car all the way back around the track, got into pits, got a new tire on, and back out at it. and we get into the carousel, and there was a car in front of me that I was running down, and he was running a really, really wide line in the carousel, and that's not what you do there. And he'd left enough room for me to run my race line. So I was really, really high and tight. We started to get to the bottom of the carousel, and he just came right into me. We both spun off into the grass, and you know, anytime you have an off like that, it's going to set you back. Got back on track, started pushing as hard as I could. Unfortunately, you know, by the end of the race, I was too far back to be competitive. So, you know, those days happen. So we were really looking forward to Sunday. You know, it was a really mixed grid, so we knew the start of the race was going to get really, really interesting. We were under the pace car opening lap, and all of a sudden, everybody had slowed down. It was gridlock going up into Canada Corner. I hit the brakes. The car right behind me apparently wasn't paying attention, slammed right into the back of me and shattered my right rear suspension.
Yesterday, it looks like there's a problem there with number 14 car. Is there a loose wheel on the back of that car? It looks like it might have been. That is the LB Cup pole sitter.
It's the whole rear end, Jeremy.
Is
because it was the left rear at one point in time and now the right rear, so
yeah.
That's odd. I've never seen an issue like that before.
Unfortunately, after they assessed it, you know, it was not repairable. To say I was upset, I was, because I hadn't even had a chance to race yet. You know, this was a pace car lap. You're not supposed to be hitting people on a pace car lap. Ultimately, it started to rain. I went up to the hospitality, grabbed a beer, and decided to sit down and watch the show. And in hindsight, I'm actually kind of happy I wasn't on that grid, because that race was an absolute mess. A number of cars were totaled in Canada. The rain started to come down, and that track got really slippery.
A lot of spray.
It's one of those tough weekends that you have every year where you're going to face some level of adversity. And for us, that was the weekend where you really had to grit it out.
Lamborghini Super Trofeo North America.
VIR is one of the most demanding racetracks in North America, and especially in a car this fast. So you know, it was a tall task. We knew we had to get our job done at VIR because that was really the last round before we go to Europe, and we needed to get as many points as possible there. And on top of that, that was another track that Slade had never been to before. So it was, you know, for me personally too, it was just, you know, let's learn from Road America, but once we've learned those lessons, we really have to put it out of our minds and get back to focusing on the championships.
We had to finish. We had to finish well in order to have a chance in Portugal. You know, the top three cars were myself, the Ophir Levy car, and the Charlie Martin car. Ophir and Charlie were constantly in this dance between second and first, and you know, picking up points on me. You know, so we went into VIR positioned well, but we had to perform well. The first race, I had a really, really big spin at the top of the S's.
Certainly don't have small spins in this climbing S's. Drops the right rear inside the apex curving, driver right. And it may take him a while to get his balance back after that. I've never seen a Lamborghini spin. That was like a top.
Thankfully, no contact, no harm, no foul. But, you know, that can always make you as a driver a bit gun shy, you know, to start really pushing there again. And then, of course, you have the weight of the championship resting on you, too. So this extra pressure you have to deal with. You know, like, I can't make another mistake, you know, or else, you know, I'm going to put this championship in jeopardy.
I was able to get back on track and finish the race. But, you know, we didn't podium where we wanted to be. We didn't get on podium, which meant the points tightened. And so Sunday's race was critically important.
Just a little bit, then right behind Kyle Marcelli in the black and blue #1, but Johnson coming back, perhaps a little contact there between the
green flag flew, went to work, started knocking down competitors and playing defensive where I had to play defensive. Back half of the race, the Martin car started to reel in, and I had to take on a very defensive posture. At the top of the S's, in the next left-hander, Martin tried to make an impossible pass and used me as a guardrail that sent me off spinning into the grass.
Racetrack, but look, I had a little help, I think.
Yeah.
Charlie Martin in the 54, I believe is who that car was. Let's watch one more time.
We filed a protest on that because it was not a racing incident. It was a move that didn't need to be made and shouldn't have been made, but it was made nonetheless, and it cost me my position. Post review by the racing body, they assessed her a drive-through penalty, and that drive-through penalty effectively gave me back my position. So I got second place on the Sunday race, which helped maintain my points position going into Portugal. So, Saturday was frustrating. Sunday was a challenge, but we came out of it with the points that we needed going into Portugal.
When we were getting ready to go to Portugal, we had a very narrow points lead going into that race, and we needed to be ahead of certain competitors in order to win the championship. It was a unique challenge going to Portugal because I'd never been there either, so coaching somebody on how to drive a track I've never been to was interesting.
So we got there Saturday or Sunday, and it was raining. I think our first day on track was Monday, and I got to do, 40 or 50 laps. For me, that was huge, and I needed mentally that preparation. I needed those laps on that racetrack, even though I'd done it on the simulator. It has a lot more variation than you could ever feel in the simulator. The track has a lot of ups and downs and some fast corners, very fast corners.
When we got to the track, I was like, wow, I've never seen a track like that. It's huge.
The track was extremely challenging, a lot of elevation changes.
So it was Wednesday that we really started to work hard. Andy and I in Flying Lizard, we had our hourly goals, our morning goals, our afternoon goals. So the objective was, go out and exceed those goals. And we did. We started to get down to some really competitive times relative to our peers. We were very happy with where we were going into our Thursday practice. We were in our final practice, and I was starting to push very, very hard. I was coming up into turn 10. It was a high speed, high compression, about 135 mile an hour turn. Some car in front of me had put down some fuel on the track, and I'm running my line up through it, and all of a sudden, traction just disappeared. About 6 seconds later, a car that had been behind me hit the same anomaly on the track. Lost control, same arc, and I just saw out of the corner of my eye, this car is coming right at me. And I just braced myself because this was gonna hurt.
I come around the turn 9, 10, 11, something like that, and Slade's up against the wall with another car, and I radio in, Slade's crashed, and I don't know what happened. And
Andy, being Andy, Slade, you okay? Calm as can be. And we couldn't communicate with Slade, which bothers me. If I just hear his voice, I know he's good, he's fine. I couldn't hear his voice.
I knew it was bad because it was a really fast, high-speed part of the track.
Once the safety team showed up and I was able to get out of the car, and when I took a visual assessment of the car, I was convinced that we were finished. I mean, the car was destroyed. And I got pretty upset about it because, you know, we had worked as a team so hard to get to the World Finals, the US Finals and the World Finals. We had come into it with such positive momentum, and here it is. We're not even gonna race. And that was really, really hard to deal with. Andy came over and Eddie came over, and you know, they were trying to, they were doing their best to reassure me that nothing's impossible. And I kept telling them how badly the car was damaged, and you know, they were just trying to get me to see some sliver of sunlight.
I know this team. I know Flying Lizard. I knew that whatever we had to do to get that car back out on the track, they were going to do it. It might look like a crushed up pop can. It might drive terrible, but that car was going to make it to the grid for the rest of that weekend. I had no doubt about that. But I think Slade in that moment, that was probably the lowest I've ever seen him throughout the season.
I let Andy talk to him because once I saw him and I knew he was okay, I was good. Now my next focus was, all right, what do we got to do to fix the car? The car comes in on the lift, and then I just look at it and I'm like, wow, okay, this is going to be a challenge.
the crane's taking the car off the wrecker and setting on the ground, and the entire 22 or 24 person Flying Lizard team is there just with their jaw on the ground saying, oh my God, are you kidding me? How the hell are we gonna, we better, they were just blown away. And I saw Slade came walking up right then when they set the car down, and you know, I said to Thomas with Slade standing there, which was a terrible thing to say, take a rope and tie it from his sore foot to his dick. Why? Make you go slow.
Ultimately, the car shows up, they crane it off a flatbed, put it on the ground. I think they had to put dollies underneath it to actually get it to roll. They start disassembling the car, and we find out that the frame shattered on the right rear corner. And when I looked at that, I was like, yep. And he's like, Slade, I've watched teams take crushed Coke cans and turn them back into race cars. If anybody can do it, Flying Lizard will get it done. And I'm just like, okay. So Lamborghini showed up. You know, they're all speaking Italian. I can't understand a damn thing they're saying, and they're looking at the car. Oh yeah. Blah, 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 blah. And these two guys disappear, and they come back, and one of them's towing this tool cart. The wheels go. The other apprentice has got this welder. He's pulling behind him, and they put spanners on the rear frame, and they went to town with a sledgehammer. And finally, I had to leave just because the noise was so bad. But you know, they got grinding, got welding, and they checked the car out. It was square. And you know, once we knew we had a solid frame, guys built their grocery list, went over to Lamborghini and bought every single part, fastener, nut, rivet, strut, axle, control arms, everything. And they had that car rebuilt and back on the ground in about 6.5 hours.
There is Slade Stewart.
You know, after the car was repaired, you know, the next day, I think everybody was being a tad on the conservative side, understandably. You know, we just had this massive incident. We didn't want to risk anything. we just turned the risk level all the way down, and we just went after that, the points at the end of the day, and that's what ultimately won the championship for us.
Winning the U.S. championship and knowing everything that had gone on with us, with the team, with the car, throughout the season, it was so cool to be able to finish the way we did, given all of the challenges that have been thrown at us.
Senor Lamborghini Cup winner.
I'm having a hard time talking right now. Trophy singular to Slade Stewart, who's done the whole race on his own. I know there was 2 safety car periods in the...
we had every challenge coming into this week with new track, completely new environment, time zone changes. I got to give it to my crew. They're the ones who made this happen. I'm just the driver.
I don't get emotional too much, but him and I worked at this for 10 years. And I'm walking down there, and I think Jerry, one of the truck drivers and does the fuel, was filming me unbeknownst to me. And Slade saw me, and I saw Slade, and we just had a big hug, and both of us damn near crying. But he said, we did it. Took us 10 years, but we did it.
To see him up there on the podium at the World Finals, I was super, super proud. I was proud to be the guy that asked him to be on the team, and I was proud that he performed like a rock star. I mean, truly unbelievable.
For me as a coach, when you're working with somebody, especially for a full race season, and you experience all these highs and lows with that driver, and you see the growth in them from race 1 to the end. It's very gratifying to see that trophy finally hoisted.
I can't thank you guys enough for the hard work all season long, our ups, our downs, to finally get to right here. It's awesome, but it's a function of every single one of you. I can't thank you enough. You're welcome.
I'm extremely proud of Slade and Tom, both drivers. I'm extremely proud of what we did in our first season. Not surprised, Flying Lizard has a very strong group of people behind us. So to come in, run the first season of Super Trofeo and win a championship makes me really proud, and I really look forward to what we've got coming in the future.